Hello, my lovely rose garden, and welcome to an epic review. I'm Avalon Roselin, indie author, and your beleaguered teenage hero chaperone for the evening. Why yes, Barda is one of my favorite characters in the topic of today's video. How could you tell? Deltora Quest is a series of 8 Australian children's fantasy novels by Emily Rhodes, originally published between 2000 and 2002. A sequel series called Deltora Shadowlands, also sometimes referred to as Deltora Quest 2, because we really should just adopt this naming style for book sequels, continued the story with 3 more books in 2002. The third installment, Dragons of Deltora, aka Deltora Quest 3, completed the series in its entirety with 4 more books from 2004 to 2005. Rhodes has continued to publish several more books in the series in the same universe, referred to as the Rhodoverse. Unfortunately, I was not able to acquire all of the Deltora books for this review, mainly because in the span of 5 years, Rhodes published 15 of them, but my library just so happened to have the original series in omnibus form, which led me down the rabbit hole of discovering all these other books I had never read or heard of before. Well, that isn't entirely true. The first Deltora books I read were actually the first 2 Dragons of Deltora books, which I picked up from a Scholastic book fair as a child, but without context, I didn't go much further. Oh, there's also, for some reason, an anime adaptation of the first Deltora Quest series that aired from 2007 to 2008. And apparently, as I am editing this, an accompanying manga series for that anime. I recently watched the whole anime and can say that it is decent, though surprisingly, or perhaps not if you've read the books, the anime actually adds content in its adaptation rather than subtracting or shortening scenes. The last 20 or so episodes of the anime are post-canon to the books. Despite this, it remains a fairly faithful adaptation, so if you have a hard time getting your hands on the books, the entire anime series is available on YouTube. And here's some fun trivia that Ray found. The same animation studio that produced the Deltora anime, OLM, also produced the original 97 Pokemon and 97 Berserk anime. And Deltora Quest somehow slots perfectly between the vibes of those 2 things. I described it to local Berserk enthusiast Janie as kind of like if Berserk were made to be a Saturday morning cartoon for kids. I actually watched the anime at the same time as reading the books this past week, so there are going to be a lot of comparisons between the 2 in this video. Prepare yourself, I'm going to ramble. So the plot. I'm not going to lie, it's pretty generic. Leaf, a plucky 16-year-old who gets up to mischief in his vaguely medieval kingdom, finds out on his birthday that he has to go on a quest to reconstitute a magical belt that will banish evil from the land. The belt requires 7 magical jewels that were scattered roughly 16 years ago by the evil Shadow Lord, and each is protected by a fearsome guardian. The beggar man who has been living in his yard for all this time, actually a royal guard named Barda, becomes his chaperone on this quest. They pick up a wild girl who can talk to trees named Jasmine and go on adventures across the land, solving problems and forming alliances with the people wherever they go, ruthlessly hunted by the Shadow Lord's minions. And this is where the non-spoiler section of this review ends, because these books are over 20 years old now, and the people most likely to find this video are probably looking it up out of nostalgia for the series rather than looking for a recommendation. If you, like me, had not read the entire series before current year and don't want to be spoiled, my recommendation is read it. It's good. Find the omnibus if you can, because as the 8 books in 2 years I picked this up at an early aughts book fair suggests, this story is best enjoyed as one complete work. Each installment tends to pick up exactly where the last one left off, and half of the first book is a prologue for the series. Altogether, the first 8 Deltora books are 731 pages, averaging out to less than 100 pages each. They're packed full of fun riddles and logic puzzles that the reader can solve alongside a cast of memorable characters, fast-paced fight scenes, and some real actual peril that makes you worry for these characters and wonder who might make it out of the quest alive. I would never say that the Deltora quest books are gratuitous in their violence, but Rhoda definitely makes the stakes clear anytime the characters get hurt. They do not bounce back like action heroes. This is one of the major differences between the books and the anime. In the books, more characters die or are more heavily injured than in the anime. For example, in one scene in the anime, Barda is incapacitated by blunt force, and it takes some time for him to recover his strength. In the book, he is bleeding out and actively dying in this scene, and it takes all the healing resources the characters have at their disposal to just barely save his life. There is a palpable tension that Barda might die in the books, which is not present in the anime due to its more action-heavy style. Not that there's no fighting in the books, mind you, but each action sequence stood out as having some real stakes to it, instead of the characters dispatching foes easily. It should be noted that the magical gems that power up the Belt of Deltora have basically nothing to do with combat. They can grant the wearer insight and heal poison, but there's no super strength or overpower evil ability unless they're all together and assembled correctly. Really, what makes the Deltora books stand out from their contemporaries, and even some fantasy series now, is not having the most special plot or characters, but fantastic presentation and strong writing. And also, sometimes you just want a generic fantasy good versus evil story. I can think of few better ones than Deltora Quest. Alright, I'm putting the spoiler warning here, so this is your last chance to leave if you want to experience the series unspoiled. If you are clicking away now, thanks for showing up anyway. Please leave your favorite precious gem in the comments and what magic power you think it should have. Who knows? Maybe it's already on the belt. Also, let me know if you want me to try and review the rest of the Deltora books. I know I don't usually do series, but these books are so enjoyable and so fast to get through, I'll consider it if I can find them. Editing Avalon here from the future, I actually did find all but the last 2 Dragons of Deltora books on Thrift Books. Not sponsored, but hey, Thrift Books, I'd love it if you did. So I have the Shadowlands books, and I am totally down to review that part of the series. If you guys want me to, please let me know. If you are leaving the video now, please remember to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. I make videos about the books I read and the books I write, and your support really makes a difference for an indie author like me. If you're interested in supporting me even further, please consider buying my books or becoming a patron. You can find the links to my website, Patreon, Ko-fi, and social media accounts in the description. So right away, I have to talk about the biggest spoiler in this entire series, Dane. I went absolutely feral at this reveal. For a series that up to this point had been pretty paint by numbers in terms of children's fantasy tropes, finding out that Dane was not the heir was already a pretty huge wrench in things. And I know that might sound confusing because obviously the biggest trope of all would be Leaf being the heir, but Leaf's total lack of a complicated past and the way that Dane was built up for multiple books to be a twist heir reveal was just chef's kiss. I can't even be mad. But not only is Dane not the actual heir, as the book has been dropping hints about for the last several appearances he's made, no, he's the spy and evil all along. Like, wow, way to give me trust issues, Rhoda. He started off as such a background character peripheral to Doom, and then became a friend and ally to the Quest trio, only to totally sweep the rug out from under them, and me. Rude. And yes, I shipped him and Leaf. Of course I did. I was ready to start writing fanfic of them. I still am. And now I must compare the books and the anime. I think that the books, being books, did a better job of setting up that there was going to be some kind of reveal with Dane. having his name be an anagram of Auden in a series that loves to anagram things, and then also having his mother's name be an anagram of Sharn, like that set it up so well already. But then they took it a step further with the reaction he had to Tora, and the one thing he knew about his mom being that she was Tauren, and Leaf always being just a little preoccupied with this very delicately handsome and mysterious boy with an unknown past. I thought it was so obvious that Dane was going to be King Endon's heir. I thought the twist reveal was going to be that Dane was the heir but abdicated the throne to Leaf because Leaf had done the work of rallying the people to their cause and would be a better king, while Dane had been largely sheltered by the resistance. I had no doubt that things would end with Leaf as king, since I had already spoiled myself for that plot point by reading Dragons of Deltora first, but how he got there took me by complete surprise. I really believed he was just the son of a blacksmith, exactly as Endon and Jared wanted me to think. I was shook. The post-reveal, though, better in the anime. Pretty much any fight scene between named characters is better in the anime simply because they have the ability to use visuals and because they actually take the time to show it. In the book, Leaf finds out that Dane is the traitor and dispatches him maybe a page or two later by putting the belt on him and purifying him to death. In the anime, we get a full fight scene with Leaf going back and forth between anger and hurt at being betrayed by his friend and wanting to believe that this isn't Dane. Say what you want about Leaf being Fire Emblem protagonist levels of trusting, but it made for a much more compelling conclusion when he reached out to Dane at every opportunity given, even though Dane had just tried to kill him, just in case there was a chance that his friend was still his friend. Leaf in the books is nowhere near as optimistic or trusting of others once they reveal their allegiance to the Shadow Lord, which is understandable, but damn do I wish the book did more with his reaction. I think that really highlights the difference in the characters as well. The book versions of the characters are more grounded by their experiences, which have been largely traumatic. Jasmine lost her parents at a young age and has been raised by either herself or the trees. She does not have good people skills as a result in either iteration, but in the anime it's much more tsundere, reminiscent of Misty from Pokemon, whereas in the book, there's a much more tangible loneliness and disconnect to her character. Leaf, as mentioned, is far less trusting of other people in the book. He's grown up in a city occupied by Shadow Lord minions and knows that people can be driven to horrible actions out of desperation. He isn't completely cynical in the books, but he definitely isn't as bright-eyed and power of friendship-y as he is in the anime. And since I talked about the two of them, I have to bring up the third member of the quest trio, Barda. Name one character more committed to the bit. I'll wait. The man spent 16 years as a homeless beggar just waiting for Leaf to be ready for this quest so he could be his bodyguard and guide him through the absolute hell world that is Deltora. If you think everything can kill you in regular Australia, just wait until you get to Fantasy Australia. This place was already deadly before the Shadow Lord took over. Barda radiates dad chaperoning a field trip energy that gradually shifts to proud father energy. His change in perception of Leaf and Jasmine is subtle but definitely there, as he comes to view them as his equals and friends more than just a pair of teens he has to look out for. At the beginning, Barda makes a lot of the decisions and doesn't really listen to Leaf and Jasmine as much. By the end, he's willing to follow their lead even when he might disagree. Just see the difference here between Book 1, The Forests of Silence, and Book 6, The Maze of the Beast. Excerpt from The Forests of Silence. Barda muttered, "Draw your sword, but keep walking. Look to the front. Be ready." Leaf did as he was told, his whole body tingling with alarm. "What are they?" What are they waiting for? Look ahead, hissed Barda, furiously dragging on his arm to make him move again. Didn't I tell you? Excerpt from The Maze of the Beast. We must separate if we are not to be noticed, Jasmine said, and since Cree and I are the ones who make our group obvious, we're the ones who must take another path. Jasmine, no, Leaf exclaimed. Do not leave us, cried Dane at the same moment. Jasmine turned to Barda. I am right, am I not? She demanded. Tell them. The big man hesitated, but his grieved face showed that he knew her reasoning was sound. She nodded briskly. Then that is settled. In a series where trust between the main three characters is a must to get through the day, it's these little moments between the characters that really sell it. Not a lot of attention is drawn to Barda's shift in attitude. It naturally occurs throughout the books as the characters spend more time together. Leaf and Jasmine also experience similar small changes in their outlook toward the world and each other. The characters in the anime do not grow as much as they do in the books, but the chemistry is still enjoyable. The book's slightly darker and more realistic tone would not work for what the anime was trying to be, but it does make for a compelling and gripping reading experience, while the anime's more lighthearted tone makes its 65 episodes a pretty quick watch. If I had to choose one to recommend over the other, it would honestly come down to your preference. Are you the type of person who enjoys reading or visual entertainment more? Do you prefer your fantasy to have a little bit of edge to it, or are you down for mid-aughts anime adventure fantasy with all the cheese that comes with it? Is it going to drive you insane that in the anime Leaf has blonde hair, despite one of the very few descriptions in the books being that he has dark hair because all people of Tauran descent do, and this is plot relevant because he is the heir? Depending on your answers, you might prefer either the books or the anime, but the story is so close that honestly, I think if you like one, you'll like the other too. The way I did it was highly enjoyable. I would read one book, then watch the related episodes, then read the next book, then watch the next set of episodes. It was a great way to see two takes on the same source material and compare and contrast how each presented the story. My only major critique of the books is that the ending is a little anticlimactic. There is no showdown with the Shadow Lord or even a representative of his power. Leaf completes the belt, puts it on, and boom, story's over. Granted, there are sequel series that show how there is still much more to do to bring peace back to Deltora, but if you were reading Deltora Quest 1 as a complete work, which I believe it should be seen as, then it's a pretty lackluster ending. Conversely, the anime drags it out a little bit too long with a multi-stage fight that totally nerfs Jasmine and has her basically do nothing. Somewhere between the two is the perfect conclusion to the story. I'm sorry for how rambly this review has been. It's kind of hard to put my thoughts on this series into words. Long story short, I love Deltora Quest. I associate it with some of the best times of my childhood, and I wish I'd sought out the rest of the book sooner, or given the anime a watch before now. The sincerity of this series has always stood out to me. It knows exactly what it is, and does its damnedest to be the best version of that it can be. It isn't always perfect, but it's close enough to get a solid recommendation from me. Thank you for listening all the way to the end of this review. Please tell me which book series from your childhood you've never completely stopped thinking about in the comments, and maybe I'll check it out. Of course, if you become a patron, you can make me check it out. Food for thought. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or in the description below, please consider joining my Patreon. Your support means so much to me and allows me to continue making content. If you want to support my content in different ways, consider buying my books, donating on Ko-fi, subscribing to the channel, or even just giving this video a like and comment. Any and everything is appreciated so much. Keep growing till next time, Rose Garden!